There is a door inside your mind that opens only once every 24 hours. It stays open for about 4 minutes. Almost nobody knows it is there. The ones who do, the ones who learn how to walk through it on purpose quietly, become the people the rest of us cannot understand. You know them. You have met them. They are the woman at work who somehow gets the promotion without seeming to try. The man at the gym who shows up at 6 a.m. for the 11th straight year while you cannot get through 11 days. The friend who got divorced, lost the house, and a year later seems lighter than they were before any of it happened. You have looked at these people and wondered what they have that you do not. It is not discipline. It is not luck. It is not, I promise you, that they read more books than you. It is what they say to themselves in the dark. In 1928, a Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Jung wrote one sentence in a private notebook that, when it was finally published decades after his death, quietly rearranged everything. Modern psychology thought it knew about sleep and identity. The sentence was this: "The last words a soul speaks to itself before sleep are written on the floor of the unconscious, as if carved in stone." Carved in stone, not pencil, not ink. Stone. Pay attention to this, because if Jung was right, then every single night, for as long as you have been alive, you have been carving sentences into the floor of your own mind. You did not know you were doing it. Nobody taught you. Your parents did not teach you. Your school did not teach you. Your church, if you have one, probably did not teach you. And yet you have been doing it every night since you were a small child, afraid of the dark. The question is not whether you are programming yourself before sleep. You are. The question is whether you are programming yourself on purpose or by accident. Most people program themselves by accident. They lie there at the end of the day and let the worst 7 seconds of the day loop in their head until they fall asleep. The argument, the look, the unanswered message, the thing they wish they had not said, and then they wonder why. 7 years later, they are still the same person they were promising themselves they would stop being. Here is what most people miss. The bouncer at the door of your unconscious, the part of your brain that decides which thoughts get in and which get turned away, does not work the night shift. Around 4 minutes before you fall asleep, in what neuroscientists now call the hypnagogic state, that bouncer steps away from the door, and whatever you whisper to yourself in that window walks straight through, into the room where you become who you will be tomorrow. Tonight, I will give you the 7 phrases, specific words, not vague, not generic, not the affirmation app nonsense you have already tried and quietly given up on. These are the phrases Jung documented. The phrases a small group of monks in the desert used for 1400 years before psychology had a name for any of it. And the phrases that, in 7 nights, begin to do something to a person. But first, there is one rule. Break it, and the door stays closed. Stay with me. I will show you until you make the unconscious conscious. It will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Your greatest and most beautiful journey is the one that leads you back to yourself. Subscribe to Deep Psychology and hit the like button, and let us walk that path together. You are still here. That means something already shifted the moment you heard the phrase carved in stone. You recognized it, not as new information, as confirmation of something you have been sensing for a very long time without having the language to hold it. You have noticed, perhaps without naming it until now, that certain people seem to live from a different operating system. Not louder, not more visible, just fundamentally oriented differently toward reality. They do not hustle in the way the internet tells you to hustle. They do not wake up at 4:30 a.m. and cold plunge and journal 3 pages before the sun comes up. And yet something about them is working. You have felt this. You have seen it. What you are about to learn is not a hack. It is not a technique. It is the mechanism that has been shaping you since before you had words for yourself. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. Once you know how the door works, you will never again walk past it by accident. The rule I mentioned, the one that keeps the door closed for most people, is this: you cannot speak to your unconscious in the language of your waking mind. If you try, it will not hear you. It will hear only noise. Let me show you what I mean. When most people try to talk to themselves before sleep, they use the language of willpower. They say things like, "I will be more productive tomorrow. I will not check my phone first thing in the morning. I will not let that person bother me." And then they wonder why. 7 nights later, they are still checking the phone, still bothered, still tired. Here is what Jung understood. The unconscious does not respond to commands. It responds to images, to symbols, to the language of dreams, which is the language of metaphor and feeling and recognition. When you say, "I will be productive," your unconscious hears nothing. When you say, "I am the kind of person who finishes what I begin," your unconscious sees an image, a shape, a person standing in a doorway with their hand on something they made. That is the difference. And that is why the 7 phrases I am about to give you are built the way they are. Not as orders, not as goals, as images your unconscious can accept and begin to arrange itself around while you sleep. The first phrase is this: "I am becoming the person I have always quietly known I could be." Notice what happens when you say that sentence slowly. Not "I will become," I am becoming. Present tense, continuous, already in motion. The moment you say it, your unconscious does not see a distant future version of yourself that you have to work toward. It sees a process already underway, a person in mid-transformation, and it asks one question: what does that person do tomorrow morning? You do not have to answer that question consciously. Your unconscious will answer it for you while you sleep. And when you wake up, you may find yourself doing one small thing differently. Not because you decided to, because the image shifted. Jung spent decades studying exactly this. He called it active imagination. The practice of speaking to the unconscious in its own language, not to control it, but to enter into dialogue with it, to let it show you what it already knows about who you are and what you are becoming. This is not manifestation. This is not the law of attraction. This is something older and more precise. You are not trying to attract a future. You are trying to recognize the future that is already forming inside you. The one your unconscious has been moving toward while your conscious mind was busy arguing with people on the internet. When you say, "I am becoming the person I have always quietly known I could be," you are not lying to yourself. You are naming something true. Because there is a version of you that you have been catching glimpses of for years. In moments of clarity, in moments when you surprised yourself, In moments when you acted with a kind of certainty you did not know you had, that version is not somewhere else. It is here. It is you, at a different frequency. And every night, in the 4 minutes before you fall asleep, you get to decide whether you move toward it or away from it. The second phrase is this: tomorrow. I will meet the day as someone who is already healing, not healed. Healing, present, progressive tense again. Because healing is not a destination. It is a direction. And the moment you speak this phrase into the dark, your unconscious begins to orient itself around the question: what does someone who is already healing do when they wake up? You may have noticed that most self-help tells you to become a different person, to fix what is broken, to overcome what is weak. And every time you try, you fail, because you are trying to move towards something that feels foreign to you, something imposed from outside. Jung saw this differently. He did not believe you needed to become someone new. He believed you needed to become who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning. Beneath the script you were handed by your family and your culture, and the part of you that learned to perform in order to survive. Healing, in the Jungian sense, is not addition. It is subtraction. It is the slow peeling away of what was never yours to begin with. The voice that tells you you are not enough. The belief that rest is weakness. The idea that love has to be earned through perfection. When you say, tomorrow, I will meet the day as someone who is already healing, you are not pretending the wounds are gone. You are acknowledging that the process of integration has already begun, that you are already different than you were a year ago, that the part of you that used to collapse under pressure has started to hold its ground. Your unconscious hears this, and it begins to arrange tomorrow around that image. Not the image of someone who has arrived, the image of someone mid-journey, walking with a limp, but walking. The third phrase is this: I release what does not belong to me. This is the hardest one, because most of what you carry does not belong to you. It belongs to your mother, your father, the person who hurt you when you were too young to understand that their cruelty was not a reflection of your worth, the teacher who told you that you were not the kind of person who succeeds at this, the culture that taught you that your value is measured in productivity and appearance and the approval of strangers. You have been carrying these voices for so long that you believe they are your own thoughts. You lie in bed at night and replay them. You are not good enough. You are falling behind. You should have done more. You should have been different. And every time you fall asleep with those thoughts in your head, you carve them deeper into the stone floor of your unconscious. Jung called this the shadow. Not the evil part of you, the disowned part, the part you were taught to reject, to hide, to pretend does not exist. But here is the paradox. The more you try to reject it, the more it controls you. The shadow does not go away when you ignore it. It goes underground. It runs the show from the basement. When you say, I release what does not belong to me, you are not trying to become a better person. You are trying to become a truer person. You are asking your unconscious to begin the work of separating what is yours from what was handed to you. And that work takes time. It takes years. But it begins the moment you name it. You do not have to know what belongs to you and what does not. You do not have to make a list. You only have to say the phrase, your unconscious knows. It has always known. It has been waiting for permission to let go. Leave the number 7 in the comments. In the symbolic framework Jung developed across his lifetime, 7 represents the process of inner transformation, the movement from fragmentation to wholeness. If even one of these phrases has already named something you have carried in silence, leave it here. The 4th phrase is this: I trust what is unfolding, even when I cannot see it yet. This is not blind faith. This is not telling yourself that everything happens for a reason or that the universe has a plan. This is something more grounded. This is the acknowledgement that there is a part of you that knows things before your conscious mind catches up. Jung called this the self, capital S, not the self you present to the world, the deeper self, the organizing principle beneath your thoughts and moods and reactions. You have felt it before. In moments when you knew something was wrong, even though everything looked fine on the surface. In moments when you made a decision that did not make sense logically, but turned out to be the only decision that could have been made. In moments when you recognized a person or a place or a pattern before you had any reason to recognize it. That is the self. It is not mystical. It is not supernatural. It is the accumulated intelligence of everything you have ever lived through, stored in a language your conscious mind cannot directly access. Dreams, symbols, intuitions, physical sensations you have learned to ignore because they do not fit the story you are trying to tell about your life. When you say, I trust what is unfolding, even when I cannot see it yet, you are not abdicating responsibility. You are acknowledging that you do not have to see the entire map in order to take the next step. You are telling your unconscious that you are willing to be led by something deeper than your anxiety, deeper than your need for control, deeper than the voice that insists you must know exactly how this ends before you begin. And your unconscious responds, not with certainty, with movement. You wake up the next morning and you do one thing you were not planning to do. You send the message. You cancel the plan that was draining you. You say no to the obligation you have been carrying out of guilt, and you do not know why. You just do it. And later, weeks later, you realize it was exactly the right move. But you could not have known that at the time. That is trust, not certainty. Trust. The 5th phrase is this: I am allowed to rest without earning it. For some of you, this is the phrase that will change everything. Because you have spent your entire life believing that rest is something you deserve only after you have worked hard enough, achieved enough, proven enough. And because the bar for enough keeps moving, you never rest. You collapse. You burn out. You get sick. And then you rest. But only because your body forced you to. And even then, you feel guilty. Jung understood that modern culture trains people to identify completely with their work, their productivity, their output, to believe that their value is measured in what they produce. And the cost of that identification is the loss of the self. Because the self cannot be measured, it cannot be quantified. It does not fit on a resume. It exists outside the logic of achievement. When you say, I am allowed to rest without earning it, you are not being lazy. You are reclaiming your humanity. You are acknowledging that you are not a machine. That rest is not a reward for productivity. Rest is a biological and psychological necessity. It is the space in which integration happens, the space in which your unconscious processes what your conscious mind has been too busy to notice. If you do not rest, you do not integrate. And if you do not integrate, you do not grow. You just accumulate more information, more tasks, more unprocessed experience piling up in the corners of your psyche until something breaks. This phrase is permission. Not from me. From you, to stop, to lie down, to close your eyes without a deadline attached to it, and the moment you give yourself that permission, your unconscious begins to trust you, because it knows you are no longer operating from the same fear-based system that was running you into the ground. You are operating from something else, something older. The part of you that knows that a tree does not feel guilty for losing its leaves in winter. The sixth phrase is this: I am willing to see what I have been avoiding. This is the phrase that separates the people who change from the people who only talk about changing. Because most people spend their entire lives in a carefully constructed avoidance. They avoid the conversation. They avoid the feeling. They avoid the memory. They avoid the truth they already know, but do not want to admit. And every night, when they lie down to sleep, they avoid it again. They scroll. They watch something. They fill the silence with anything other than what they have been running from. Jung believed that the unconscious is not trying to hurt you. It is trying to make you whole. And in order to make you whole, it has to show you the parts of yourself you have disowned. The anger you were told was unacceptable. The grief you were told to get over. The desire you were told was selfish. The fear you were told made you weak. When you say, I am willing to see what I have been avoiding, you are not opening Pandora's box. You are opening the door to integration. You are telling your unconscious that you are ready to stop running, that you are strong enough now to hold what you could not hold before. And your unconscious does not flood you. It shows you one thing, just one, in a dream, in a memory that surfaces the next day, in a conversation that triggers something you thought you had buried, and you look at it, not forever, just long enough to see it clearly, and then it begins to lose its power over you. This is not trauma work you do alone. If what surfaces is too much, you find someone trained to help you hold it. But the willingness that is yours, that is the first step. The willingness to stop pretending you are fine when you are not. The willingness to stop performing strength when what you actually need is to be seen in your fragility. The seventh phrase is this: I am exactly where I need to be. Not where you want to be, where you need to be. This is the phrase that ends the war. The war between who you are and who you think you should be. The war between where you are and where you think you should have arrived by now. The war between your life and the imaginary perfect life you have been using as a weapon against yourself. Jung spent his entire career studying people who were suffering not because their lives were objectively difficult, but because they were at war with their own reality. People who had everything they thought they wanted and were still miserable because they could not accept that this right here, right now, was their life. Not a rough draft, not a waiting room, the actual thing. When you say, I am exactly where I need to be, you are not resigning yourself to mediocrity. You are acknowledging that resistance to reality is the source of most of your suffering. That the part of you that keeps saying, this should not be happening, or I should be further along by now, or I should have figured this out already, is the part that is keeping you stuck. Because you cannot move forward from a place you refuse to occupy. You cannot grow from a place you are pretending you are not standing in. You have to be here first, fully here, in this body, In this life, in this exact moment, with all its imperfection and all its unfinished business and all its uncertainty, and the moment you stop fighting it, the moment you say, I am exactly where I need to be, something shifts. Not externally. Internally, the tightness in your chest loosens. The voice that has been screaming at you to do more. Be more. Fix everything right now. Kie? And in that quiet, you hear something else. The voice of the self. The one that has been waiting for you to stop running so it could finally tell you where to go next. You may be wondering whether becoming this person will cost you the life you have built, whether letting go of the constant striving, the constant self-improvement, the constant war with yourself, will somehow make you less, slower, weaker, less capable of meeting the demands of the world. It will not. What it will cost you is the suffering you have been calling discipline, the exhaustion